Hello and welcome to Sterling Gamer with me, Sterling. I have a new hobby. I'm a music producer now. It all started because I had this crazy idea for an EDM song. It's so cool. But I didn't know how to end it, so I just did a harmonica solo. It's Sonic time! The brand new Sonic the Hedgehog game just released, and boy has it been a wild ride. If you're only watching the first little bit of this video, know that I like the game despite its many flaws, most concentrated near the end. This marathon of a video will be split into 4 parts: the build up to Sonic Frontiers, my general review, the spoiler story review, and the future for Sonic as a whole. This video will have chapters and timestamps in the description if you want to jump around. I don't think I missed any details, so here we go. Our story starts in late 2017, where 3 events all split off from each other and then reconverged to create Sonic Frontiers. The first event was that the public had finally finished making up their mind about Sonic Forces, and it was not pretty. There was an almost universal consensus from everyone, Sonic fans, critics, and other gamers, all saying that the game was very rough. I'll save it for my Sonic Forces review, since my opinion of the game is fairly similar to the commonly accepted one, but the biggest way to describe this game was missed potential. Finally taking on the core Sonic story in a game, a direct follow-up to Generation, and a cool custom OC, because man do Sonic fans like custom OCs. It should have been the best Sonic game yet, but it fell on its face in almost every situation. Nobody really likes this game, often criticizing short length, lack of replayability, bad design, and overbearing linearity, and we Sonic fans wanted to change the pace. The second thing that happened is that the Sonic team felt many of the same things that we did. The criticism of their own game was probably not as harsh as the fans, but they sure did have a lot of problems. The only problem with that is that they didn't know how to make things better. Even if they tried their best, they could never beat Generations. At best, they would just get a repeat of colors. Something needed to change, or Sonic was doomed to die. Thankfully, they had plenty of inspiration. Around that time period, the first games to define the era of freedom were released. I have an entire video about this topic that I'm working on right now. Check it out when it's done. The simple version is that the gaming world was shifting to a new era. A new frontier of gaming was upon us. This new era followed the era of adventure, started by Ocarina of Time, and now another Zelda game was part of the push to a new era. This era is defined by more player choice. An easy way to do so, in the path that many of these earlier games are taking, is an open world. The Sonic team most likely looked around at all this and decided that Sonic should change with the times. The final event was the Sonic the Hedgehog IDW comic series. This book is incredible. I highly recommend it to all Sonic fans. It was announced in July 2017 to follow the Archie published books that ended earlier that year. It was announced that the head writer would be Ian Flynn, a relatively new-faced comic writing, but one who had really proven himself with the last few arcs of the Archie series before it ended. The book seeks to establish a continuity between all the games and takes place immediately following the events of Forces within the main game canon. It began publishing in April 2018 and is still going on. After a little over a year, the first arc ended and the second one started. That second arc is my favorite Sonic story of all time, the Metal Virus. It follows both heroes and villains from both the games and comics trying to survive and help people in a zombie apocalypse where all the zombies are robots. It's the perfect Sonic take on one of my favorite tropes in all of fiction. Apparently, my love for this arc and the comic as a whole was not exclusive. Ian Flynn was almost universally praised by Sonic fans. At least as much as Sonic fans can agree on something. And Sega noticed. Okay, that was a whole lot of non-Frontiers talk for a Frontiers video. So let's have these stories start converging, starting with Sega working on the next Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers. The concept is an amalgamation of their own drive to innovate Sonic, fans wanting less linearity and more replayability, and the gaming world moving towards open world games. And a hearty dose of original Sonic Drive, Mario inspiration. According to Wikipedia, the idea for the game came from the idea of world maps akin to Super Mario Bros. 3, but you can run between the areas and do activities. Now they just needed a writer, since the story and writing were another huge criticism of Forces, and thankfully Sega knew just the guy. Ian Flynn was doing so well with the comics and had a majority of Sonic fans backing him, which is a difficult feat, that Sega decided to let him be the head writer of their new game. With this, Sonic Frontiers began development. We don't know much about the game's development yet, so the next point that we jump in is actually its announcement at the end of the Sonic the Hedgehog 30th anniversary livestream on May 27th, 2021. It's a fairly basic teaser that, with hindsight, represents the game pretty well, but without the context was not much more than, Sonic's back! One thing that we did not learn was the title, but the metadata for the dedicated trailer that was released soon after suggested that the title was Sonic Rangers, which totally sounds like a Sonic game. We got the final title later that year at the Game Awards. After that, we had almost complete silence until the summer of 2022 when we got the full gameplay reveal through IGN. One day, IGN, the largest pop culture and gaming publication in the world, randomly published a video on their YouTube channel. The video just showed a few minutes of gameplay, giving us our first look at Sonic Frontiers. Over the following days, we got more videos showing off more of the game, as well as some initial reviews and interviews. How to reveal a game. This reveal was horrible. There was no showmanship, no pizzazz, no build-up, and the stuff they showed was just bad. It was a few clips of an earlier build that looked pretty bad. They also did not explain anything until after a few days, resulting in Sonic fans having to comb through these clips. Oh my goodness, was that a punch? After the IGN fiasco, we got some more interviews and dedicated trailers leading up to release. In the last few weeks, we got 2 prequel comics and a prequel animation. The comics show Sonic, Tails, and Amy heading to the Starfall Islands where we see them at the start of the game, but they are distracted by an Eggman robot. The main takeaway of these comics is that Eggman has a new AI. The animation follows Knuckles explaining why he shows up in the game after not being in the opening. It's fairly good, and I'll explain how it led me to think the ending would be better than it is later. That sums up pretty much everything we know about the development of the game and the build-up to release. And this video is almost already as long as my shorter videos, so that's a great sign. Now we cover the game itself with my spoiler-free general review. Also, all the footage on screen will be from the first 3 islands, all of which were shown in pre-release gameplay footage. So if you avoided those because of spoilers, 1, what are you doing here watching a review for the game a month after it released? And 2, don't look at the screen. Sonic Frontiers is a very interesting game. First off, it's good. That's a lot to say after the last few 3D games. Although it's good, it's in the same way as the first game. It has some really high points, but also a bunch of unnecessary garbage that bogs it down. The biggest low is concentrated in the last few hours of the game. Everything else is actually really fun. First off, the controls. For the most parts, they are the same basic controls as boost-style games. Movement, a double jump, a homing attack, a boost move, a downward kick, and a slide. We also have some odd returning moves like the lightspeed dash and the drop dash from Mania, debuting in 3D. The only new move is the Psyloop, which is only really used for puzzles and ring farm. Despite only one new move, Sonic feels fresh and much better to play than any other game. Before playing Sonic Frontiers, I played some Sonic Unleashed, and after playing it, I played some Sonic Generations. Both of those games' boost-style levels are amazing, and they have some level design that's better than the best that Frontiers has to offer. But neither of those games feels as good to control as Frontiers. The homing attack is tied to its own button like in Unleashed, but unlike that game, this feels completely natural. A large part of this is that you have the Colors and Forces double jump. This would already make jumping so much better, but you also have changes to the core mechanics that add to this. The boost is now optimized for mid-air travel, but can only be used once per touching the ground. Also, if you hold the downward kick, Sonic will bounce out of it, giving you more height than a normal jump. Homing attack, boost, kick, all of these moves are constant parts of Sonic's controls, but now they feel so much better thanks to some small changes. This game is the tightest and best that Sonic has ever controlled in his over 30-year history. Some of the most fun that I had with this game came from stringing together multiple moves to complete small obstacle courses. I briefly mentioned how the homing attack feels natural on its own button. This is true, but not the only case. Every platforming move that you could pull off feels so much more natural than anything before. The only exception is the drop dash, because I often forgot it was there, and it's weird thanks to the double jump. It's best used for climbing hills. Everything else, though, no comparison. Those amazing strings of tricks are only possible because I don't need to think about each move. I just know to press the homing attack button, then to boost, then to lightspeed dash. I don't think about anything. It's like the game's playing itself, but oddly without getting boring. I wondered if this was just a fluke or just me being better at Sonic games, but Generations has something else to say. Although I was better than I ever have been at that game, it still didn't feel natural. I forgot about ducking and sliding and lightspeed dashes. It didn't feel fluid like Frontiers did. The last major change to controls compared to previous games is the boost. Gone are the days when Sonic needs to keep a meter full of alternate power, whether that be rings, aliens, robot power, or a mixture. Now Sonic can boost at will, assuming he has energy. The boost is tied to a stamina wheel that slowly depletes while you use it and then quickly fills up after. Although you can temporarily get infinite boost by side looping in an infinity symbol. Also, the boost button is a trigger, which makes it amazing for traversing land and using other functions like jumping and side looping while boosting. My only problem is the speed. You move much quicker while boosting, but the speed is still not a lot when running across giant islands. There's so much open space in these worlds, which gives Sonic plenty of space to run, but when you're just trying to get to an objective, it can become a bit much. You can upgrade your speed, but it's not a huge increase, and I have a few problems with that system that I'll discuss later. Instead, the way to go fast is to collect maximum rings, which gives you what I affectionately call Movie Sonic mode. I mean, come on, look at it. With this mode active, you glow in the dark, lightning follows your boost, and you boost much faster. This almost makes up for the slower boost, but it's not free. As I said, you need full ring counter, which becomes harder the more you play. This means that spinning around in circles to farm rings with the side loop is a common occurrence just to get from place to place. Instead, what I've been learning to do is use speedrun movement tech to get from place to place insanely quickly. This builds upon the exciting movement and seems like the best way to play. I'll discuss speedrunning further in the 4th chapter of this video. That's enough on movement controls. They are great and super fluid. That's not exactly the case for our next topic, combat. Combat uses every face button twice, once for a regular combo attack and once after pressing the boost to do a more advanced attack. You also use a couple of other buttons for a single attack each. At the beginning of the game, you only have a basic melee combo, which you give friends throughout the game by using a skill tree. The skill tree uses levels that you build up by defeating enemies, doing tricks, or finding XP through the world. This is the only thing that these levels affect. Upgrading stats uses a different system that I'll explain later. These attacks are flashy and fairly useful, but repetitive. This is not helped by the unlockable auto combo that you get pretty early. This makes this already repetitive system into a simple button mash as the game plays for you. Despite all of this, I really like the combat. It's exciting and fun, often make you think about how to defeat an enemy. Problem is, each puzzle is repeated throughout the whole island, making it then about crowd control as you pick them off one by one. I often ignore basic enemies in the open world, but mini and main bosses are very fun. I just wish there were more. Each island has a couple of respawning mini bosses as well as one main boss at the end. I wish I had some bosses in between these categories, maybe after getting some of the Chaos Emeralds. These regular enemies just don't cut it, so there's no reason to fight them. Many of the attacks also blend together after a while, resulting in me just using 2 or 3 repeatedly. This does not mean that it's not good, it just needs some work. Sonic with combat is a great idea, but sadly both times that's really been tried have largely flopped. There are some specific points throughout the game where the combat is definitely justified. The combat system has many ups and downs, but the base that we already have is really good, and I'm excited to see it expanded. The gameplay for Sonic Frontiers is split into 2 different parts, Open Zone and Cyberspace. Cyberspace is a digital realm formed from the memories of those in it, resulting in a lot of green hill and chemical plants. These levels are structured like typical boost-style levels that have defined Sonic for the past decade and a half. High-speed 3D action with branching paths or more linear 2D platforming stages. The 2D stages in this game range from good to not so good, with most being okay. The 3D levels are obviously where the time went, and I would say that Generations has overall better stages, but this game does have some that would be at home there, if some of the worst ones. Some can be fairly annoying at times, but the quality is mostly consistent. It's a blast to speedrun these levels and get an S rank. Except one too. Seriously, that time limit is ridiculous. Each main island has 7 or 9 in total, with each having the possibility of giving you 7 portal keys. One for just beating the stage, one for being fast enough to get an S rank, one for getting all 5 red star rings, and one for getting enough regular rings, and 3 for doing all the other 4 challenges. This makes replaying these stages fun since you can think about them entirely differently, and makes you feel like a boss if you get all of them in one run. One run might be all about being the fastest thing alive, while another might harken back to S3K with exploration and collectibles. Cyberspace is more of a mini-game than anything. The bulk of the game takes place across the 5 open zone Starfall Islands. These islands, specifically the first 3, are well designed and distinct. They have noticeable landmarks that are amazing to run through. These massive islands are dotted with cyberspace doors, 6 Chaos Emeralds, the last one powers the boss, mini-bosses, Sonic's friends, map challenges, and countless micro-challenges. These micro-challenges are a blast, each one taking advantage of your refined moveset to create challenges that almost play themselves but make you focus and feel like a boss. They dot the land and provide a wonderful challenge to mix up running from place to place. The only problem is that they are sometimes distracting, catching your eye and taking you off course, and are the #1 thing that you notice with this game's horrible pop-in. I played on the PS5, and it still had abysmal poppin'. Apparently the Hedgehog engine 2 that runs this game is able to render faraway objects as low poly, but no low quality model was put in for any of these objects, resulting in them appearing out of nothing right in front of you. After some time I was able to tune it out, it wasn't too much of a problem, but I can't speak for everyone here. Some might find this so distracting that they can't even play the game. Doing these sub-challenges rewards the player with memory tokens, which are used to talk to Sonic's friends to progress the story. This is one of your 2 objectives on each island, the other being collecting the Chaos Emeralds. By helping out friends, the final boss of each island is unlocked, but you need the emeralds to fight it. The emeralds are found across the island, locked by key requirements. As mentioned before, you get these keys from cyberspace stages, and you access those using portal gears, and you get those from fighting mini-bosses. It may seem like a collectathon at first, akin to Banjo-Kazooie, but that's far from the truth. Instead, each collectible feels less like a collectible, and more like a physical representation of how much of a certain task you've done. Like, you can only do cyberspace once you do enough combat, and you can only get the emeralds if you do enough cyberspace. The whole system becomes second nature by the halfway point of the first island. Each objective and their attributed collectibles are fun, engaging, and not too long, but not too easy. That is, unless you decide to cheese everything. You see, there are these purple coins in a corresponding purple cyberspace door. You can find these purple coins around the world, or win them in a slot machine that plays during a direct copy of Blood Moons from Breath of the Wild. This is the real way you get coins, getting hundreds of them every time this event happens. Use these purple coins at the corresponding purple cyberspace store, where you talk to the fan-favorite purple cat from Sonic. Big! He was trapped in cyberspace, which of course became a fishing spot for him. You could spend the purple coins to borrow a rod and fish, receiving fishing tokens corresponding to how good the catch was. These tokens could be spent to buy any collectible in the game. Memory tokens, portal gears, vault keys, and even upgrade items can be bought here for extremely cheap. You can also get some egg memos, which are some personal notes that Eggman takes while within cyberspace, which expand on the lore in small ways. This completely breaks the game, making almost everything optional if you just fish. The only major resource is your time, spending to get the coins and then actually fishing. But the later the island that you do it on, the more coins that it takes, but the more tokens you get back. Meaning the later you go, the less time it takes. I personally didn't use this system to get any of progression items, but I did get almost all of the upgrade items through it. Sonic has 4 stats in this game: attack, defense, ring capacity, and speed. The defense just means how many rings an enemy makes you lose if you get hit, instead of losing them all like in older games. Because of this, ring capacity acts like your health stat. You upgrade attack with red seeds of power and defense with blue seeds of protection. These can be obtained, of course, by fishing, but the main way you get them is by completing map challenges, which dot the world and give you your map instead of getting it all at once like a tower in Breath of the Wild. You give these to a Hermit Coco, large rock men that you can find on each island. They take these and use them to instantly upgrade your stats, no questions asked. Speed and ring capacity are upgraded at an Elder Coco by finding regular tiny Coco all over the island. You return some of the lost Coco to their Elder and he'll upgrade a stat by 1 level. Then you need to do it again for the next level. And again. And again. You have 99 levels for each of these 2 stats, and each upgrade takes over 15 seconds, making it a complete nightmare to max out your stats. Power and defense you do all at once in a few seconds, but since these 2 stats use the same currency, you need to go at a snail's pace. It's infinitely annoying. As of recording this video, I have enough lost Coco to max out my final stat, ring capacity, but I don't want to spend all my time doing that. Anyway, you do your 2 objectives and upgrade yourself on each island, all in preparation for the big bosses, the Titans. These colossal metal beasts are so big and strong that Sonic is nothing more than an annoying insect to them. The first time you encounter one, you are destroyed without even giving it a scratch. This is why you need the Chaos Emeralds, to even just stand a chance to them. You help your friends, you get 2 of the emeralds and unlock the boss. You get 4 more emeralds with the collectibles. The final emerald to complete the 7 is powering the Titan. You run at it and have to reach the head Shadow of the Colossus style to get the final emerald. Once that's done, you can go super, and it's one of the coolest things in all of Sonic history. Super Sonic is invincible, but has a timer in the form of rings. If you run out of rings, you die. This means that the Titans can't hurt you, but they sure can try to slow you down. You have to use your existing combat moves and tricks to defeat the Titan before they can destroy you. These are perfect Super Sonic fights, not like any of the existing ones where the gameplay is completely different from the main game. If anything, these fights are closest to Sonic Adventure 1's final fights, since that one also expands on Sonic's existing moveset instead of replacing them. You have your complete combat moveset, but it's super fine. This makes the fights feel like an obvious and epic expansion of the gameplay instead of a quick break from the gameplay to have a cool, flashy fight. Not to say that these are not flashy and cool, they are the exact opposite. They all have high energy, screamo rock music in the background. This is far from my preferred music type, but it works so well to set the tone for the fights. They also have a ridiculous cinematic feel. Each one would work as the final fight in the next Sonic the Hedgehog movie, despite being player controlled. Honestly, my biggest problem with these are that you don't start with maximum rings, so you have to grind them before the start, and you can't replay them in a file once they are defeated. You have to start a whole new file and get back to that point to refight them. That pretty much sums up my general review for this game. Going forward, huge spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about the last 2 islands and the story. If you're heading out, please subscribe. Please encourage this strange behavior of writing and recording these videos. See ya. And all of you who are staying, let's do this thing. The story starts with Sonic, Tails, and Amy in the tornado as they head towards the Starfall Islands because for some reason the Chaos Emeralds are all grouped together there. Before they can land, a large portal opens up and sucks them all in. Eggman similarly went to the island seeking some ancient technology that was left there by some ancient tribe. He finds what we know as a cyberspace door, puts some kind of AI into it, but gets sucked in himself. At about the same time, Knuckles discovers a new cave on Angel Island, which oddly has a cyberspace door that sucks him in. Now all our characters are in cyberspace, and only Sonic can escape. Everyone else is stuck there with no foreseeable way out. We knew just about all of this, minus 1 or 2 details, before the game released. Once he escapes, Sonic hears a voice that tells him to destroy the Titans to free his friends. Sonic ain't too keen on this, but doesn't have any other choice. After a while, he half-frees Amy so that she can at least see and talk to him, all while a red and black figure watches. Before long, it's revealed who that figure is. Sage, this odd, infinite-looking girl who promptly activates the first Titan against Sonic. He goes to whoop this big metal man, but gets demolished. Sonic figures that he needs the Chaos Emeralds to defeat this Titan, which he gathers up. While doing so, Amy befriends a Coco who dies seeking her true love in this odd flashback world where the Coco look like Chaos from Sonic Adventure. Sonic gathers up the rest of the Emeralds, goes super, destroys the Titan, and goes to the second island to do the same to its Titan. Sadly, he's shot out of the sky and the emeralds scatter, resulting in him having to do everything over again, but with Knuckles as the trapped friend. Amy had this whole story about finding love, now Knuckles has the story about being a good leader and finding his past. You repeat everything and go to the third island, where everything repeats one more time, but with Tails! Tails' story is all about stepping out of Sonic's shadow and becoming his own hero. You beat that Titan and go to a part of the first island that you couldn't go to before called Rhea Island, where you complete 6 towers while slowly learning the backstory for the Coco, dying, and ultimately having your friends return to cyberspace to let you live. That voice turns out to be an evil spirit that destroyed the planet that these aliens with the Chaos Emeralds lived on, and they used the Emeralds and their Titans to go to Sonic's world where they were ultimately wiped out, leaving only the Coco and their tech as husks of their civilization, but managing to capture the voice in cyberspace. After that, the 4th island, air quotes used, is completely done, and you go to the final island. Just another part of the first one. Ornos Island has exactly the same structure as the others, but the evil computer girl is the character that you talk to, whom it turns out is Eggman's AI, who now thinks of him as her father. You get all the emeralds, defeat the Voices Titan, and the true final boss begins, if you're in hard mode, where Super Sonic and Sage and the final Titan chase down the voice, who is named The End. Then you play a round of Ikaruga, and the credits roll. That was a very summary summarization of the story. On the surface, it's a really good, basic Sonic story. The problem that I have is all the alien Coco stuff. The way that we were told about what happened and the actual events themselves was super lame and underwhelming. We wonder about the mystery for the whole game, thinking that there has to be more, but there never is. They're just aliens that ran away from the end. The big reveal is that the Chaos Emeralds were from them instead of being native to Sonic's world. 1, super obvious ever since the second island, and 2, who cares? What does this change? I guess it brings into question the Master Emerald, which I thought for sure would be addressed throughout the whole game, but it never was. In fact, I thought for sure that the final island was gonna be Angel Island itself from Sonic 3. I mean, it makes sense, it would be super cool. Knuckles kept drawing parallels to the ancient ruins on the second island and the ancient ruins on Angel Island, The Knuckles animation also showed a cyberspace door on Angel Island, so obviously the ancients lived there, and of course the Master Emerald tying into the whole emeralds from space mystery. Instead, we got a boring island using the same assets from Chronos. The fourth island also uses the same assets, and it's literally just to get to a few towers and play some cutscenes that they piled into the back half of the game. Once you complete those towers, the island is 100%ed. Also, I have to say, the big bad being nameless emo 13-year-old spewing the most cringy, edgy lines that the writers could come up with while you shoot the moon in Ikaruga was extremely underwhelming after the amazing boss fights before. As you may notice, almost all of my problems with this game are centered on the last third of it, and that's because the development team ran out of time. They spent so much time designing the wonderful and fun Chronos, Ares, and Chaos Islands that the deadline for the game got too close and they had to rush out an ending. It's not unlike this video. I spent so much time writing the non-spoiler parts of this review that I have to bunker down and finish this review well over a month after the game was released. But the difference is that I'm grinding out a good ending instead of just recapping the story and saying that I don't like it. I'm elaborating, I'm making something new and keeping the video engaging through the entire video, instead of just leaving a sour taste in your mouth at the very end. What's next? The future of Sonic? Well, the game's only been out for a month, but we already know that we're getting some free DLC. Not just the free cosmetics that released with the game, but full-on new modes, stories, and characters. As of writing this video, we only have this one image to work off of, but it looks amazing with signs of the ability to fight bosses again, new areas, and of course the hope that we'll be able to play as Tails, Knuckles, and/or Amy. My hope is that we get all of them with only some slight alterations to Sonic, like in the older games, because that would allow them to successfully work on all three characters, and it would give us 3 new characters that work with the whole game without breaking it too much. I cannot wait for these 3 DLC packs releasing across all of 2023, and I'll definitely be playing them throughout the year. Another thing that is keeping the game alive is speedrunning. This is both a Sonic game and an open world game, so of course the game breakers are working double time, and it seems like every week a new exploit is found. So far, the biggest and most fun is the DSS Shuffle, or the Hedgehog Space Program, which allows you to rocket into the air and skip over some invisible walls, making the first island a breeze to skip. There's some other major glitches and exploits, all of which are going to be put to the test in a video that I'm working on, Sonic Frontiers without touching a ring. Stay tuned. Something that I, a lowly console player, have not had a chance to use but is already huge is modding. Like Generations, this game has become a hub for fan mods. So far, the crazy people are still figuring out how this game works, but we already have playable Shadow and Tails, every model, animation, and voice for Sonic that you could ever want, and some other miscellaneous mods. I don't expect it to be too much longer before we get full-on level mods and more advanced character mods that add new features. In fact, as of recording this video, this isn't even in the script that I have. People have already started porting levels from past Sonic games into Frontiers. They're already doing it. The last major thing to talk about with this Future of Sonic segment is the fact that the style of gameplay, the open zone format with linear levels sprinkled around, is going to be the gameplay style that Sonic will take for the next decade. This is the next adventure or boost jump, and we can expect 2 or 3 more games in the style. I'm really happy about this because I love open world games, and I think Sonic fits the genre perfectly. This one just has a few rough edges. I really like Sonic Frontiers, despite what it may seem like thanks to my whole tangent about the end, in both uses of the terms. I already started speedruns and challenges for this game, and I feel like it's going to be one that I play for a very long time. It's December right now, and Sonic Frontiers has definitely won my Game of the Year award, just like it should have won the Player's Choice Award at the Game Awards. If you're a fan of Sonic, open world games, or quality games in general, I highly recommend this game. Man, it's been going for a while. How far in are we? Oh man, this video is long! If you've made it this far, you either really enjoy this content or are clinically insane. Either way, please hit the subscription button. We're pretty close to Christmas, and it would be really nice to get 200 subscribers before Christmas, but we're almost out of time. Thank you all so much for watching. See you all later. Bye!